Coming up next, we're speaking with former Assistant U.S. Attorney Rocco Cipparone for more on the case against the longtime New Jersey lawmaker.
Bob Menendez preparing to defend himself against corruption charges for the second time in 10 years. The senator beat unrelated federal charges back in 2017 when his trial resulted in a hung jury.
On Friday, the senator, his wife, and 3 others were indicted in Manhattan federal court. The charges against Menendez allege that he took hundreds of thousands of dollars in bribes.
So here, a look at the new case is New Jersey attorney Rocco Cipparone. He's a former assistant U.S. attorney who's prosecuted white-collar crime. So good to see you, sir. Thanks for being here.
Good morning, guys. How are you?
Doing well. So, let's talk about this, right? Because there's big news here. You've read the indictment. What's your sense, really, of how strong this case seems against the senator and his wife? It's historic. This is the second time a U.S. senator now indicted.
Yep. So what happened here is the government took a lot of time to do what we call a speaking indictment. That is, they laid out at least the meat and potatoes, so to speak, of their case. And they make a lot of connections that the senator is going to try to uncouple. But when you look at the steps they take you through in the indictment, the timing is very suspect. The connections between what we call the quid pro quo, right, the this for that, promises or influence for the kind of material things that he and his wife were given, looks pretty substantial in terms of the case against them. But that's at first blush, at least.
Yeah. Okay. So it's important to note that this case is being brought out in New York because the U.S. attorney in New Jersey had a conflict. Menendez apparently supporting him for his position. But I want to pick apart the defense, okay? Because the senator, he's accused of providing sensitive information to Egypt, helping a co-defendant remain the exclusive exporter of halal meat to Egypt. But Menendez argues that the feds are misrepresenting normal work of Congress as a criminal. So what do you make of that defense?
So he's going to try, what his defense has to be is uncoupling or breaking apart the payments or the gifts, he'll probably call them, from the actions he took. He's going to say these were normal things I would do for constituents, for people who are, close to me, for people in my district or people who otherwise support me. And that's what a congressman does. The government's going to try to keep those things packaged together and say that these are not normal things. If you look at Menendez's last case, which resulted in a hung jury, that was a little bit different because many of the financial things that happened were campaign contributions as compared to the kind of direct payment allegations and direct gift allegations the government's making here. So he's going to have a harder time with that. This was a lot of money. It was over $500,000 in cash. It was a luxury car, gold bars, and maybe he was trying to provide the gold standard of representation. And I say that tongue in cheek, but that's going to be the fight where the gold bars, the money, the car, the air purifiers, the exercise bikes, were they quid pro quo things.
Right, and that was all what was allegedly found in the house, right? $500,000 cash stuffed into various parts of different areas of the house. But it's really, the gold bars, you don't really hear of this kind of thing often.
You really don't hear of it often. There's really kind of almost a follow the yellow brick road breadcrumb trail to his house in terms of these gold bars. And the other thing that I found particularly interesting, and you do not see this a lot in white collar cases, is they went to the efforts to fingerprint envelopes and cash and take DNA tests. And they found DNA and fingerprints of one of his co-defendants and the co-defendant's driver that link that envelope containing cash to them, but also importantly, Menendez's fingerprint, Senator Menendez's fingerprints, as opposed to just his wife, on that envelope as well. That's going to be pretty potent evidence.
And then there's the email trail.
There's an email trail, and there's both emails that were preserved between the co-defendants and Menendez and his wife, but also emails that were deleted. And the deleted emails presumably were recovered from the way the indictment reads. And what the government's going to do from that is the prosecution will argue that the deletion of those emails that are, for lack of a better term, maybe smoking gun emails, demonstrates that Menendez had consciousness of guilt. He didn't want to preserve that evidence, so he deleted it because he was aware of its incriminating nature. That'll at least be the argument.
Sounds like there's a lot of evidence, okay, compared to the first trial. So when you look at it in its totality, right, and all the things that are laid out here, and a lot of it's tangible, do you think that he would take a plea deal in exchange for maybe leniency for himself or even his wife?
Well, I think that's very unlikely. First, again, we're only looking at the indictment, and admittedly, of course, that's one-sided, right? As a defense lawyer now, I know you have to look at all of the evidence, and this only presents the government's best foot forward. But I also think because Menendez had his past case, he's buoyed by the fact that that resulted in a hung jury. It's very unlikely, especially given his position, that he'll take a guilty plea.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out. New Jersey Attorney Rocco Cipparone, thank you again for being here this morning.
Thanks for having me, guys. Have a great day.
You too.